Coming up on this episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
People were uncomfortable with me being sober, but it was also because I wasn't confident in my sobriety.
And I remember one meeting just being in tears and just being like, why can't I fucking have a normal relationship with alcohol?
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? It almost made me in a bad mood. Like, well, that's the one I missed.
I grew up in a home where alcohol was central to there was so much alcohol in our family. Santa was drunk on Christmas Eve when he came to our house. And I wish that was a joke. That podcast is coming right up. First up, let me tell you about a couple of our resource partners. One of our proud resource partners is Eric's House. Here's the deal. Nothing quite prepares us for the heartache of a profound loss. And grief isn't a problem to be fixed, but rather a normal reaction to loss. So when somebody you love dies, it might feel like everything you once knew is true has changed. When we experience that loss, especially the ones that are really unexpected, like suicide or addiction, grief is complicated. That's where the community at Eric's House comes in. Link to them on the resources page at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com. You've probably heard me say this before, but most of the things that kill us are preventable. And that's exactly why I put my heart in his hands, in his care. I'm talking about Dr. Robert Todd Hurst and HealthSpan MD. He's my cardiologist because I appreciate his holistic approach to heart health. There's nothing out there like HealthSpan MD. His AFib reversal program, his CAD reversal program. Get the link on the resources page at learnfrompeoplewholivedit.com.
Looking for no bullshit conversation about mental health? Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Hi, I'm Abbie Boudreau.
Hi, I'm Janay Oakland.
And we are the co-owners of Teetotally Lifestyle.
What's up, guys? What story are you here to share today?
Well, I think that our big story today is to tell you about what we're doing with Teetotally Lifestyle. It's a new approach to really reaching out to people who are sober curious and people who are mindful drinkers. And we want to let everyone know that you're not alone on whatever kind of sobriety journey you are on right now.
Yeah, just offer support and a community out there for people.
Who do you hope hears this?
I think we're really hoping that people who hear this are people who are reconsidering their relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
And we know that those relationships are usually pretty complicated.
And then people who know that they're not going to be alone and that there's other people like us out there.
I love this. I'm so excited about this conversation. I came to know Abbie through a friend of mine who works in the television industry here. And she set us up. There was instant chemistry and synergy, and you could just feel like that electricity through the phone. And it was like, okay, we got to get together. We got to put something down on tape here, because what you just mentioned, those two words, sober curious, that's a new sequence of words. We're starting to just kind of tiptoe into this space right now. What's so neat for me as a recovering alcoholic is that for years, it has been very challenging to be in any kind of an atmosphere, whether it's a gala or going out for drinks or going out to dinner. Like, just hasn't been very many non-alcoholic options for me to feel like I'm participating without being the odd man out. That's really starting to change now. We're really starting to put some different choices in there. And then B, we're starting to learn a lot more about alcohol and how detrimental even one drink can be for somebody. And so I'm locked into this conversation, Janay and Abbie, and I can't wait to have it.
Awesome.
Here's the question. We're going to come swinging right out of the gate. Abbie.
All right. Prepared.
What's your first experience with alcohol that you remember?
Oh, wow. Okay. I actually remember it pretty darn well. I didn't drink in high school. I was a freshman in college when I had my first Jell-O shot.
Classic.
Love that.
Jell-O. I think it was a Jell-O shot followed by Jungle Juice. And I think I recall letting the kids at the fraternity party know that my name was Abbie, spelled A, 2 B's, 1 I, 1 E. And I think I repeated that quite a few times. And honestly, I was like, why did I wait so long to start drinking? It was fun. It was exciting.
I know, me too. I felt
rebellious. I felt grown up in a way, even though My parents weren't big drinkers. I loved the freedom that came along with it. Really, this whole idea of working hard, playing hard. I was a great student, but I saw freedom in playing hard, and that's what all of a sudden I started defining playing hard as.
What about you, Janay? What was your first experience with alcohol?
Yeah, I didn't drink in high school either, and I remember my roommate and I. Oh my gosh, we had a blast doing everything. And then we added alcohol to it, and it got really fun. But I remember like she and I just decided, let's just try drinking in our apartment. And we just we were pretty green at it. Let's just say the next day was really rough.
Yeah.
we didn't really know what we were doing, but we had a lot of fun doing it. And yeah, it just I feel the same way. You kind of feel like an adult, and it was fun and just kind of enhanced things, and yeah, no responsibility. So it was great.
What were your homes like growing up? My first brush with alcohol, I think I might've been 5 years old, and on my dad's lap, getting sips of beer from my dad. And I can vividly remember, even now, all these years later, being in that living room on that in that house on Juniper Street in Coon Rapids, and being excited about those sips of beer. Like I enjoyed the taste of beer at a very young age. It wasn't like, you know how you'd give some kids beer and they'd be like, oh, it's so gross. Like I remember going, I'll have some more of that, please. And my dad having to be like, whoa, that kind of backfired on me. I didn't think that was going to happen. What were your houses like? Was alcohol central to celebrations, to dinners? Give me a vibe and a feel from that.
I just have to stop you. Coon Rapids, Minnesota.
That's it.
I'm from Minnesota.
Which part?
Up by Detroit Lakes, Monoman.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't you know?
Oh, I do know, yeah.
Oh wow.
What just happened there, right? Right, Abbie?
What just happened?
Yeah. We were on a different planet there.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up in a family that drank. I grew up really religious, and it just wasn't part of celebrations, but we still had a lot of fun. And my parents were big advocates of definitely not drinking until you're 21. Okay. So yeah. And I was a rule follower, and I played sports, and they said, don't drink. So I said, okay. I signed the contract, and I didn't drink.
I mean, I have a lot of similarities with that. Same situation as far as there wasn't a lot of alcohol. My mom did not drink. My dad would, but it wasn't a real central part of our everyday life. It was more of like social drinking or family events. There's definitely alcohol at family picnics and holidays and all of that stuff. But again, it was very rule abiding as well. You know, my parents were super strict. I have two sisters. They kept us under wraps. We had very strict curfews. There was no drinking. No. Yeah. And so I think that's part of the reason why that jungle juice may have tasted so good my freshman year in college. Yeah. And I thought, why didn't they let me do this sooner? My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a mess, because it's a mess. That's why they, you know what I mean?
They were good parents. They were good parents. Yeah. Exactly. Definitely good parents. Yeah.
Me too.
Isn't that funny? And some of my parent group friends down here in Ahwatukee will have this conversation from time to time about like, is it better for your kids to have a little experience with it before they go off to college, so that when they get to college, it's not like this grand discovery and then all of a sudden the lid pops off and they don't know how to handle it and deal with it?
What do they think?
I know.
I don't know. I think people go back and forth on it, but generally I think more people side with it would be better if they had a little precursor to the event before they get to college, and then they discover without any supervision how it can feel.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe that would have put me on a straighter path for a little bit.
I don't know what the answer is myself, because I grew up in a home where alcohol was central to there was so much alcohol in our family. Santa was drunk on Christmas Eve when he came to our house. And I wish that was a joke. I wish that was just something I made up, but that was the real life. And then when I got into the radio and television industry, I don't know if it was this way for you, Abbie, and the TV side of things, but man, there was a lot of social gatherings, and we were at nightclubs, and we were at parties, and we were at client meetings, and like I remember interviewing for a job in Kansas City, and I walked into the general manager's office at 11 o'clock for an interview, and he asked me if I wanted a beer. That is the world I grew up in. And so it's wild how so many people can be so different. All right. So back to you guys and, Teetotally and how that came to be. When did you guys ever get to a point with alcohol where you were like, this might be becoming a problem? Or did it never get there? And then did you just one day wake up and become, to use your words, sober curious?
I would say for me, I just had fun drinking. I loved going to wineries. It was just there was never a problem. It was just, and plus I'm a lightweight. So my 2 drinks or everybody else is 7 and, just had fun. And then I got to my 30s and had kids. And I was like, I'm exhausted. Is painful. I'm exhausted. Yeah. The kids are getting up early. I'm still trying to hang. Oh my gosh, I was starting to feel worse and worse and worse. And I've always been super into health. I did workout videos as a kid, making them for my parents. I've just really have done that. And as I'm going through life, I'm this is not serving me anymore. I can't do this. And so about 9 years ago, I gradually was little less. But I think where my problem was, not a drinking problem, but a pleasing people problem. And so I kept drinking for other people. I didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. I was yeah, sure, I'll go out, I'll have some drinks, and then I would lay in bed and be I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to do this again. I feel so awful. And finally, we just moved to Phoenix a year ago, and I found a lot of friends that had the same mindset. So I think the law of attraction was working for me. And that really helped me to feel what, I can make my own decision. If I don't feel good, I'm not going to do it. And also there's so many alternatives now that has been so helpful. You can go to a party and have a mocktail and it's more acceptable. So,
yeah. Well, and nobody knows what's in the glass nowadays too, which is,
exactly.
That in itself kind of helps. What's the story for you, Abbie?
Well, I definitely feel my story goes back to my journalism days. You touched on this pretty clearly. And during that period of time, I worked as a TV reporter, local stations, and then at the network for a bunch of years, all in 20 years. And there's definitely a mentality among people in the industry, and I'm not saying everyone, of course, but where you work hard. We are saying
most.
Yeah. I mean, if we're being honest.
We're saying most. Yeah.
It really kind of ties back to that work hard, play hard for me. And you work so hard, for breaking news. It's around the clock, and you work, and then you finish the day with a glass of wine and you unwind, and you start developing this idea that wine or alcohol allows you to unwind, almost like that's the nightcap. You're working to that moment where you can just relax.
Yeah.
And I think that it was fine for me for a long, long time. And then COVID hit. Okay. And I was living in LA, and it was a true lockdown. And I got a call one day, and it was from ABC News. It was from the lawyers, and they just said, "Listen, we're making hard cuts." And I'd been there for 10 years at that point, almost exactly 10 years. And they said, we're looking at an 80% pay cut. And I slept on it, and the next day it was over for me. So I went from having this job that I didn't really realize at the time, but it was who I had become. It was my whole identity.
Yeah.
It was my whole identity. So I went from, hi, my name is Abbie. Yeah, I work at Good Morning America. Yeah, it's a great job. To, hi, my name is Abbie. And I'm a mom, and I'm now homeschooling, and I have nowhere to drive because everything is closed. And why not have a glass of wine? And why not have a glass of wine with dinner, and then maybe another glass of wine after dinner? And then tomorrow is hit repeat, because you know what? We're not going anywhere. And now I have no reason to wake up. I'm not getting up and working and being a productive part of this society. I'm just at home alone and struggling. And it was just months of this and months. And I would wake up and I'd be like, why did I do that? And the things that would go through my head would be like, I'm going to have breast cancer.
Yeah.
I'm going to get sick from this. Why am I doing it? It was a Tuesday. It's not a Saturday. I was a social drinker, like as I became a mom, I drank less and less. Right. But then during COVID, it wasn't going anywhere. And I started drinking more and more. So I ended up, my husband said, a few weeks after I lost my job, he said, let's move to Phoenix. We met in Phoenix. I was a local reporter here at one point many years ago. And he said, let's move. And, at first I was like, I don't know. There's so much change. My friends are here. I'm going through a lot right now, but we moved. And once we moved, I realized this is an opportunity for me. I need to make a change in my life. Like this isn't going well, and I need to be there for my kids. I want to be there for my kids. Yeah. What am I doing? And it wasn't like bottles of wine. It wasn't like my husband thought I was an alcoholic. It wasn't even that I thought I was an alcoholic. It was these habits of, I'm making dinner.
Yeah.
Open the rosé. Just like sort of became just like what I started doing.
I want to ask Janay, as a friend here who has kind of watched Abbie go through this transition and work on a new identity for herself and figuring out how to answer that question of, hi, I'm Abbie and I blank, 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 ... right? What have you noticed in your friend that has been a part of that journey?
Well, I think I've known her for a year, but I loved her like immediately. And I think I didn't know her as Good Morning America Abbie. I just know her as Abbie. And I think she's amazing. I might have to cry because I do. I think she's like my best friend and we're like sisters. And she's just really strong with it. She stood with it. And I think she's really helped me to like find a voice and be like, it's okay if you don't want to drink. And she just has so much more to offer than just being Good Morning America Abbie. Like starting this with her has just been amazing. She's so driven. She's so passionate. And she's just really like helped motivate me to
That's so sweet.
to do this.
Really sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's really, really hard. And it would be really impossible probably to help everybody understand the magnitude of what, people like me and Abbie, and I kind of lumped sports and entertainment in the same category. They're two categories where you can never be off. You are always on. You are always looking for the next thing. You are only as good as what's coming up. Everything that has already been done has been forgotten about the nanosecond it was completed. And it's just what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. And what that can do to your nervous system is like literally just put it in full on blown panic mode. And it becomes really difficult to settle your brain down. And so it's not strange to me that we hear about athletes, entertainers who frickin' OD on drugs, who are total alcoholics. It's because you look for anything that can just turn that volume knob down to a place that's manageable. Because especially if you've been doing it for a long time, man, it's easy to just get super cooked. And I mean, I don't know. My story is like, it got to a point where I had to be medicated in order to perform. Like I just got to a stage in my career, in my life, where it was like, I'm not even funny unless I'm drunk. I'm not even funny unless I'm high. I'm not even funny unless I'm doing pills. Like, and that's a real place for so many people because they just do not know how to handle the workload. And then what you're speaking about, Abbie, is so right. And Janay, I'll try to help you understand it too. It's like we got into this COVID situation and our audiences disappeared overnight. For a morning radio guy, think about what happened the next day after the pandemic. There wasn't a single car on the road. Nobody was listening to the radio anymore. Everybody's television habits were completely different. And then streaming is coming aboard. Like there was just so much change over the last few years in this traditional media space that it's no wonder people like you and me and others are kind of going, Is there something else out there? Is there another thing that we can do with our skill set here? Because what you're good at, Abbie, is helping people understand things more. And so you can use that skill set in this place now. You can use that skill set in this sober, curious place here. And I want to ask you kind of the same question that I asked Janay, which is this, Abbie. What do you notice about Janay since starting this thing together? What kinds of things have you been shown in her and her personality and characteristics, kind of the person she is?
Really, ever since let me just tell you this, like when we first met and she came over with her son and to play with my daughter for a play date, they were classmates, and I offered her a sparkling water and she said, "Do you not drink?" And I was like, "No," kind of apologetically, no, because normally it would be like, "Want a glass of rosé?" You know, and then the moms were all like, "Oh yeah, let's do this. They're fine." Right. And we just sat there. We had a glass of sparkling water, and I thought to myself, this is what I've really been looking for: is a friend to be a friend when we're sober, when we're just having a nice conversation, and when we can just be there for each other and be present for our kids. And that's one thing I love about Janay, is that she's present with her children. Yeah. You know, she's a good mom, and it's hard to really be that kind of mom when you're juggling a wine glass in your other hand. It really is. And since we came up with the idea of Teetotally, she has gotten a lot more confident in her idea of not wanting to drink and being able to say no. She said it herself. She's a people pleaser, and she is. And it's because she's very kind-hearted and she wants to make other people happy. But I think since we've gotten going with this, she is okay saying, "No, I'm good. Thank you. I've got something else I'm going to drink," or I have something going on tomorrow morning, an early soccer game, and I want to feel good tomorrow. I'm good. Thanks. And so it's been really exciting to see you find that extra voice, that louder, deeper rooted voice that is there, that I know you question sometimes. Yeah.
Let me help you out, Janay. I learned this in a previous podcast. We all think and suffer from this idea of imposter syndrome. We all do.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I could be like the president.
A lot.
I say it all the time.
A lot.
Okay, so let me blow your mind. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The imposter is the thoughts that are coming in saying you're not good.
Yeah.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
The imposter is not the person doing the work. The imposter is the thoughts that come in to say, am I the person that should be doing this? And so that can help you reframe imposter syndrome almost immediately. It's easy to think of yourself as the imposter. It's not true. The imposter are the thoughts that are coming in telling you that you're not the person who's supposed to be in this game, so to speak. So
that's so true.
Yeah.
That is so helpful because I have monkey brain. Yeah. And I have that all the time. And I have a lot of good things have happened in my life. And I've been fortunate, and like, I'm talented at piano. And I'm like, I don't even know if that's true. I question it.
Wow. Yeah. You guys start listening to this Learn from People Who Lived It podcast more, because we got some gems that we have dropped, including that one. Here's the other one that blew my mind. We had a psychologist on, and she said that people pleasing is actually selfish, because you're doing it to make yourself feel good. And so if you're doing things that genuinely don't make you feel good, then stop doing them, because you're really just a people pleaser because you like how it feels when there's peace and cohesiveness and some of these things. And hearing that too was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that. Yeah.
It's totally spot on. Like we do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
The people pleasing is actually for us. It's not for them. We do it so that we can feel good in the place, and we don't have to have that icky kind of, to use a good Minnesota word, that ishy feeling of like, oh, I don't like the way this feels right now. It's like, well, then stop doing that. You're just doing it for you anyways. And so anyways, those two nuggets, there's like a million more, but those two nuggets have changed the way that I look at my own people pleasing, and then my own, imposter syndrome, quite frankly.
That is very helpful.
Let's move on. Let's move on and talk about this sober, curious movement. It's becoming louder and louder. And here's what I think I've come to understand and learn about you guys that I like. I'm not on the phone with a couple of alcoholics who, wrecked their whole lives and ruined their families and took it to a place of just total disaster. And then like they were at the very bottom and then they had to try to figure out this way out. No, that's not the story. And I think your story is more common, right? There's less people like me who almost piss it all away and have to claw back to get everything together. There's more people who are just questioning their relationship with drugs, alcohol, pills, exercise, whatever your drug of choice is, and they're curious about it. They want to say things like, what would I be like if I wasn't drunk at the holiday party this year? What would that feel like? What would it feel like as if at my daughter's birthday party we didn't serve any alcohol? And these are questions that I think more and more people face. And so it's cool that you guys are on this movement. I'm sure you're going to gain some traction from it. What does it mean to you to be sober curious?
I think for me, it means that I got to a point where I'm sick of drinking and I'm sick of the way that I feel and I'm sick of regret and wondering, wait, what exactly did I say last night? I'm sick of all of that. And so I'm curious about what life looks like without it at all. And I did not have a lot of examples of that when I stopped drinking. I was online looking for support. I was looking for people who I resonated with, and it was all very medical. And there was a lot on AA, and I questioned, am I an alcoholic? What is my label? And I just didn't resonate with any of it. I really didn't. I felt like I was an in-betweener. It was easy for me to stop for dry January, but after dry January, it was hard because then I felt alone. Then people who were my friends were like, okay, it's not January anymore. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And and they didn't, I didn't get
February. Let's go.
I didn't really get that much support outside of a few real close family members and my husband. People were uncomfortable with me being sober, but it was also because I wasn't confident in my sobriety.
I wasn't confident in my sobriety. Wow, that's a great one. What does it mean for you, Janay, to be sober curious?
I think for me, I'm also sober curious, but I'd also consider myself a mindful drinker. Like every so often in a blue moon, I have a glass of champagne.
There you go.
But I choose something extremely good and I enjoy it. And I know it's not like the healthiest for me, but I mean, it's far and few between. But just for me, I just make that choice that it really is health related. I don't want to feel gross. I don't want to be unmotivated. Like, I want to be there for my kids. I always felt like for like maybe 5 hours of fun, 2 days of like unmotivation and anxiety and kind of like feeling a little like low. And I just didn't sleep well. And now I just feel like almost like I have a new life. I feel like in my 20s, which is amazing.
Aren't you 20?
Oh, I mean, I'm 23.
She is still in her 20s. She's
Yeah.
still in her 20s.
Yeah, my fake age.
Yeah.
What was the first, you guys have mentioned this a couple of times, this dry January situation. Did you guys do a month off together? Was this a collective thing and that's how it started? Or did you both choose it individually and you came together and said, holy shit, I'm doing the same thing?
Yeah. Well, actually, so I did a dry January in January of 2022. And then we met deep into, let's see, maybe September, October of 2022.
Yeah.
So she was kind of meeting me in my awkward not drinking stage, where I was alone a lot. I didn't put myself out there, even though I'm super social and I love being around people. I was at home, didn't want to create any awkwardness with people around me. A lot of people, since I was new to the area, let's go grab a drink. Oh, yeah. Okay. Do I tell them now? Do I tell them when I get there? Like, it was just so uncomfortable. So really, we started connecting, well into my post-dry January. And you have been a mindful drinker for quite a while. And I think you've gotten more confident in it since we've met.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for you, but definitely when I met her, she was like, I hardly ever drink, so she was kind of already at that point.
I admire you, Janay, in a big way, because when I set down alcohol in 2006 was my last drink, December 14th, 2006.
That's great.
And I remember going to therapy after to try to kind of just figure it all out. And I remember one meeting just being in tears and just being like, why can't I fucking have a normal relationship with alcohol? Yeah. Why can't I just be somebody who goes out to dinner and grabs a nice glass of wine and that's the end of it? Why can't I just go to a birthday party or some celebration and have a sip of champagne at a toast and that be enough? And so I really, really admire people who have a healthy relationship with anything, quite frankly, but especially these things like, drugs, alcohol, and pills that can kind of take us down a really dangerous spot. And something you said earlier, Abbie, resonated with me too. I didn't really get down with AA either. It never felt like my people. It never felt like the thing that was going to be the right thing for me. And when you're going to stop drinking, it's almost the norm. Everybody's like, well, you should go to AA. You should do AA. Yeah. And I went to a couple of meetings and I just kind of felt like I looked around the room and I don't know, it didn't match for me. And at the end of the day, for me, honestly, guys, I was like, listen, bro, this works really only one way. It doesn't matter where you go, what your support is. You either drink or you don't. Like, that's it. It really is that simple at the end of the day. You either do or you do not drink. And so you just have to wake up every day and choose not to drink. That's it. End of discussion. End of story. And I don't know why, but I've been able to do that, for
that's awesome.
What year is it now?
Once you put your mind to it.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Matthew, because we always joke that we feel like we hear this all the time. It's either you have to be pregnant or you have to be battling addiction in order to choose not to drink. Oh, yeah. And we do not believe that. We believe there's a whole space out there where you can choose not to drink because you want to make that decision.
For whatever reason.
If it's because of health, if it's because of any other reason.
Yeah, you just don't want to.
You don't
like yourself when you drink, whatever.
Yeah. And so that's the space that Teetotally is trying to explore. It's not I hate calling anything like extreme, but it's not like pregnancy to addiction. It's that space in between that we really want to just shine a spotlight on and say, it's all right. Listen, here's what life can look like if you choose to not drink or drink a lot less, and you're going to level up. You are going to level up. You're going to be able to have time to pursue different interests, different hobbies. I started drawing again. I started painting again. I started a garden. The things that you have the time and the passion for. It has unlocked parts of my brain that I have not experienced in so many years. And it's really made me a better mom, a better wife, a better friend. And I feel good when I wake up. I'm excited to start the day instead of like, why did I do that?
Me too. I consistently get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get my day started. Like, that was not happening before. Like, my days are long. They're great. They're, fulfilling and productive.
Really? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Janay, and you both can bat this around, but if you're going to be sober curious, you're going to decide, whether it's a month or 6 weeks or 6 months or a year, whatever time frame you want to put on it. And you say, I'm just going to stop drinking for a little while. How, in your experience, how important is it to find something to replace it with? And I'm asking this question based on the fact that, Abbie, you just said, I replaced it with this. I started a garden. I filled it up with these other things. So the question is, if you're going to set it down for a while, how important will it be to sort of fill that space with something more productive?
Yeah, we're huge believers in it. And that, I think, is part of Teetotally. It's kind of like, we want to be a community of like focusing on things that help kind of distract you from drinking, because there's so much more out there that you can do. And like just picking up hobbies, and like, I'm a big tennis player, and she has a lot of DIY, and it really does help to have these activities to like keep you from just sitting around and having glass of wine. And
I remember when when I had stopped drinking, and then my husband and I would go out for dinner. The drink that I was really used to was getting ready, the drink of wine while I got ready. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? It almost made me in a bad mood. Like, well, that's the one I miss, like how am I going to replace that? And I've had to like come up with ways to replace that. So I think replacement is important, and so what I do instead is I might have an espresso.
Yeah, she comes in hot with an espresso.
I do.
Like,
I have a nice little espresso. I turn on my music. I do more self-care than I've ever done. I take pride and time for myself. It used to be a chore, the last thing on my checkoff list, something for me. And I don't say that to be like, oh, what a martyr, poor, I say that because it's true. I never took time for myself, and now I do. And my kids see that and they join in with me. It is just it's a nice new ritual, but a Teetotally focuses a lot on self-care and ideas that you can do for yourself that are not super expensive. And hobbies are very important. I really do think, because when you're doing a hobby, like when you're painting or you're riding a horse or you are playing tennis, you're focused. You have like this like cool tunnel vision that you can get. And it's so important to have that, like your brain start kind of, redirecting or recalculating and firing off in a different way.
Yeah. And to be totally healthy, I got a health coaching certification later in life, figuring out what I'm going to do in my next chapter. And
I thought you were only 28.
I know. That was chapter 23. To be fully healthy, it's a whole spectrum of things. It's not just like I eat healthy and I work out. I mean, Are you spiritually healthy? Do you have hobbies? Do you have good relationships? Do you have a social life? I mean, it is a whole spectrum. And I think that's kind of really what we're trying to create for people.
Yeah, I agree.
I have to. I go out and speak on burnout. And one of the biggest things that we say, or that I say rather, is self-care is the way to prevent burnout. That's it. It's an end of discussion. And when you stop taking care of yourself, you literally overnight become, and I don't want to freak anybody out, but it's true, you become the worst version of yourself. And it is not selfish to institute a beautiful self-care plan for yourself. In fact, it's the only way everybody gets the best version of you. And I love to articulate this story over and over and over again by just calling myself out and saying, when I was in my shit and not taking care of myself, hands down, I was the worst husband, father, coworker, friend, son, brother. It was impossible for me to be good for anybody else because I couldn't be good for myself. And I love the idea that you're leaning into so much self-care, because especially, and let's take this example that's pertinent to you guys, which is booze, wine, right? A lot of times we'll think of self-care and we'll be like, oh, I'm going to have a wine night with my girlfriends. It's like, okay, that's great. It is. It's nice. It's nice to go out and laugh. It's good to have that community, but you're still drinking. And what I heard this quote one time, it freaking floored me, which was, how about you live a life that doesn't require you to escape all the time? And that just, bam, just hit me right across the head like a 2x4. It was like, oh my God, you're right. How about I design my life so that I don't have to escape all the time? So I don't need to get drunk every night because I freaking hate what's going on. And I can tell you that when I was in my business, man, I did morning shows. So by 4:00 in the afternoon, there was nothing else to do but start drinking. And that's just the truth of the whole thing. So I love the self-care strategy that you guys are imploring everybody take, because I think, similar to parenting, when you're going to ground your kids, if you're going to use that old school technology of grounding your kids, you can't do it without replacing. You have to fill that time with something, or it's going to be ineffective. And if you're going to set that booze time down, you're going to fill it up with something that's going to be a little bit more meaningful. I'm going to press a little bit on Janay, because you mentioned this idea of working on myself spiritually. That's a huge component for a lot of folks. It was for me. There's a judgment-free zone, so I don't care what your answer is, but how do you work on yourself spiritually? Yeah,
I mean, I've always believed in God. Yeah. I grew up in a very religious family. That's very important to me. And also I'm a meditator. Yeah. I don't know if I could survive without meditating. I have to be able to shut my brain down, and I take that time. Another way I meditate is I play piano, and I don't know, it grounds me. It makes me feel like I can do anything. My best ideas come when I'm doing that. I go to church. Yeah. That's always a great, way to
faith is important for a lot of people, for sure. It is. Yeah. Is there something for you, Abbie? Are you spiritually in tune in some way?
Oh, absolutely. Very similar to Janay. I'm always, actually, we started doing something, and I would say it coincided with making more time for the family, where we do you know The Secret, the book, The Secret?
Yeah,
everyone kind of, okay. So we just love that book. We think it's a really great, almost it's more than a beginner, but like it's a good beginner book for little kids too. So we do like every night at around 8, between 8:15, the kids come in our room, and I have almost an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Okay.
And they come in, they get in our bed, and we just turn on the Audible for The Secret. And we listen to 10-minute chunks. And I will tell you, they sleep better. They wake up happier. They are motivated. And it works for me. And it's worked for me for a really long time. Just thinking about the positive things. We mentioned the law of attraction. It's so powerful. And so meditating is huge. I believe in God. I do go to church, and I'm raising my kids in the church as well. So I think spirituality is very important.
It is. And gratitude is a big part of ours too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That connectedness.
Even when the kids don't
bigger.
want to, I'm like, what are you grateful for every night?
Yeah.
Really can't start too soon.
Yeah.
I can think back, you brought up childhood memories, and I can think back when I was really young, like, 10, 11, 12. And my mom was always like this as well. And she would say, sit down. I can see it in your face. You need to meditate. And as a kid, it's so weird, but she would have me close my eyes, and she would paint a picture of me at the beach with the sand, walking through the sand and the water running between my toes. And she would get me to a place of calm. And so that state of calmness has always been, I've always been able to reach it through meditation, no matter what, and no matter what stage of my life. Yeah. But when I stopped drinking, definitely I was more mindful, like, I need to introduce this to my children. And it's been really awesome to see how they react to this. They'll say, I need to change my frequency.
Yeah, that's cool.
I know. If you have bad energy, and put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I listen, I love The Secret. I always tell people I love The Secret, but it's important to remember that there's 12 laws of the universe, not just one. And so, you're driving down a 1-lane freeway there, and there's 12 other lanes that you should be aware of as well. But it is a really great starting ground, because it does. I practiced Buddhism for many, many years. And one of the core principles in Buddhism is that sort of life comes from you. And it doesn't come at you, it comes from you. And so it sort of falls in line with the law of attraction and that principle of what you put out.
I'm a big believer in that.
You're going to get back. And there's a lot of truth to that statement. And there's a lot of truth to the fact that when you're connected to something that's bigger than yourself, it's a little easier to get through these things. I always encourage folks when I'm putting on my burnout workshops to say, like, you should really seriously consider a breath work, mindfulness, meditation, or prayer practice. And I don't want you to get lost on language. They all do the same thing. They all make you better decision makers. They make you a little bit more calm in the face of adversity, and they help you stay connected to what's truly important about yourself. Now, if that sounds good to you, go down one of those 4 roads, because they all literally do the same thing. They connect you to something and here's the other piece. If you're not drinking, well, we both know it, right? The alcohol has its way of kind of calming us down and settling us down, especially if we have, more than a few, and we can get into a pretty good space where we feel pretty good about ourselves and our life, and everything's kind of humming. That buzz is powerful. And when you get rid of it, you do need to replace it and find a way to settle your brain down a little bit and get it intact. And I wonder if you guys, how strong you feel about this idea of, if you're going to set down alcohol for real, like not just be sober curious, but get rid of it for real, you'll have to find some of the things that you and I have just been discussing over the last 10 minutes to replace it with, whether it's a hobby or a mindfulness practice. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Agree. Totally. And I would say both. I mean, you definitely, but it's amazing how much more time, energy, patience, and focus you have when you stop drinking. I mean, it's
you're not just going through the motions of things. Like sometimes I'd get up the next day and I'd be like, okay, I'm cooking breakfast. All right. And then I'd try to like just sit on the couch, be like, here's your iPads. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
This is
but
ridiculous.
One thing that's interesting about both of us is that both of our husbands still drink.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, when I was questioning, I mentioned I would wake up in the morning and I would be like, oh my gosh, this could give me breast cancer. This could give me XYZ. Why do I feel this way? And my husband's just sleeping peacefully. And he had a great night of, having a couple glasses of wine or more and sleeping like a baby over there. And you said monkey mind, 100%, 4 a.m, monkey mind going, oh my God, why am I doing this? What did I say? He wakes up, no, hon, you're fine. You're fine. I said, babe, I got to stop this. I got to stop drinking. I didn't want to disrupt our relationship. Yeah. So that prevented me from slowing down or stopping for a long time.
Me too. I felt like
we both
this is like what we did together.
Yes. And then when I stopped, he was my number one supporter. He said, you don't have anxiety anymore. There's no more anxiety.
Yeah.
Like you're waking up and you're feeling good. And he wanted that for me. Yeah. Maybe deep down, he wishes that maybe I could have that glass, but never once have I felt that he wants me to go back. And that is enough for me to go, okay, this is better for my relationship. And my relationship comes first. So I feel really, really strongly that it was the right decision for me. Yeah.
My husband fully supported it too, but he was like, just stop being Minnesota nice and wishy-washy and just be like, I'm not going to drink, instead of being like, well, know,
the people pleaser. What do they need from me right now? And you get into those situations, you make it about them.
But really, I'm making it about me, I guess. I want to be comfortable.
It's true. Yeah, it's totally true. And here's the thing, like for people in relationships like yours, and my wife still will have a cocktail every now and again, but what they're looking for is a shared experience. That's what they want, whether that's booze or a bike ride. Like oftentimes those people around us, they like what happens when we're together. And
that is true.
And it doesn't have to be so much about the alcohol doesn't need to be the centerpiece. We can change that centerpiece to something different: tennis, yoga, breath work, a walk, horseback riding, whatever that is. But I think at the end of the day, that's what folks are seeking, is connection. And they just want to have a shared experience with each other. And that's what they miss, because there's so many good things tied to those drinking days, right? You think about
fun events.
How much fun you were having when you were drinking.
People used to call me Fun Abbie. Like they would, when I stopped drinking, they would say, and I was really hurt by hearing that. And I heard it from quite a few people. So I was like, well, what does that mean? And, does that mean I'm
of fun?
Yeah. And like, they haven't even been with me when I don't drink. By the way, I'm still super fun.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Me too.
I mean, my God, life of the party right here.
Right.
No, but I mean, when I was drinking, alcohol would affect me in a very lively way. So I get what they're saying. Loud, funny, last one to leave.
Sure.
That's how I was, and very personable.
Oh yeah.
But I would also, stick my foot in my mouth. I would get feisty. I would, possibly pick a fight maybe with my husband at the end of the night.
Oh yeah.
I was not, so it wasn't always fun. They would see Fun Abbie, and maybe it wasn't always Fun Abbie, but those were not it wasn't like all the time, but that's how it would be if I really indulged. And so, Fun Abbie, I thought, God, I am still Fun Abbie. And I want people to feel like they can still go out and be the life of the party. It's just about overcoming that awkwardness at the beginning, because we're so conditioned to think that alcohol equals fun, when that is not the case. Yeah. It's not. We can have fun without alcohol, and give it a shot, because you'll find out the same thing. I just think people need more support. They need to see a visual example of what it looks like to have a good time without the alcohol. So many people have reached out to us, and we've only just kind of getting our feet wet. And they have said, well, gosh, COVID really screwed me up. Yeah. COVID really screwed me up. I got to get control over this. I know I'm drinking too much. How many times have we heard this? I'm drinking too much, but I don't know really what the next step is, And so that's why we wanted to create Teetotally.
Yeah. Well, and also I have to admit, there was a period where I wasn't as fun when I wasn't drinking, because I felt so awkward.
Well, because we isolated ourselves. Yeah. We were isolating ourselves, because
and so we don't want people to experience that. Yeah. We want them to make the choice and then just feel like I'm fun, and not have that the gray period of like, I did kind of sit there and like, oh, okay, like I said no to alcohol and now I feel weird and is it affecting people? And and I like, didn't want to go out for a while, and that's so not like me. I want to do everything. I have FOMO. I want to be invited to everything, go to everything. And so there was a period where I was like, that's okay. I'll just stay home.
I was a shut-in for about a year. I mean, I was like, oh, God, people are going to be judging me. And maybe that comes from a place where I would have judged them previously. Maybe I would have thought that was weird that they didn't drink.
Yeah, no, I definitely judged.
And I think that comes from a deep-rooted societal, traditional drinking culture. You know, this is what we have learned. This is what we've seen. We are Generation X.
Yeah, this is what we do.
How it is. This is what it is. And I'm just glad.
Everywhere.
It is. It is. But, you know, it was funny because you brought up the holidays. And I remember my first holiday season was just last year, you know, the full season. And I was like, how am I going to do this? I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. And like I said, my husband drinks, his family drinks. We were with them and they wanted fun Abbie. You know, and I was so uncomfortable and so awkward that I probably wasn't
I know,
fun.
I've had many
I
of
probably
those.
was kind of weird. And the whole shift, you know, we were talking about law of attraction. Everyone started talking to me about the things I didn't want them to talk about. I kept thinking to myself, God, I hope no one notices. Well, of course, that's what they noticed. They're like, what's wrong with her? Is there a real problem?
Yeah.
Is she pregnant? You know, is she got a problem with alcohol? Finally, I realized, okay, I need a plan. You know, I need a plan to get into the holiday season. Yeah. And I feel like this holiday is going to be much better.
Yeah. What is the plan going in? What's the plan for both of you going into the holiday season?
Well, we're coming up with some good mocktails.
Okay.
Definitely. BYOM.
Yep.
BYOM. Bring your own mocktail.
Yeah.
You've got to show up with your own drink. You cannot just expect other people to just have an array of mocktails. And you might want more than just a cranberry seltzer.
Yeah. There's some great like non-alcoholic wines out there now and some tropics. There's great options that you can bring. And I think we're just going to keep ourselves busy. There are so many fun holiday activities to go out and do.
Absolutely. I think another thing that you can do that's really effective is to go to a party with another friend who doesn't really drink too much or doesn't drink at all. And if you can't go with them, see if they're going to be there later. It's nice to meet up with someone and someone who shares your similar.
There's power in numbers.
I think so. I think it is nice. I certainly do not mind being around people who are buzzed. No. But once the stories start repeating, I do get a little bit like, oh, I would love a
I'm out.
Nice warm cup of tea.
I don't have a tolerance for it anymore. It's been so many years. I don't have a tolerance for it anymore.
I agree with you. Yeah. I don't mind a buzz. I really don't mind being around people who drink.
Fun,
but when it gets to that next stage, then it is time to go.
When it's a little sloppy, then it's like
we start turning into college students again.
The jungle juice. It always comes back to us.
Yeah. What's the plan? What's the planned response when somebody comes up and says, "I noticed you're not drinking"?
Oh. I know. I still sometimes I'm still like, oh, but
I literally just say, I'm not drinking tonight. I'm good.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why? And I'm saying, I don't feel like I am having fun with alcohol anymore. Yeah. I'm having fun with this drink. I'm good. Alcohol isn't fun for me anymore.
Yeah. I say I love wine, but wine doesn't love me back. So we had to break up.
That's great. And usually people will laugh about that.
Yeah. It's nice to get a laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is nice to just to get a laugh. But you have said that. I've heard you say that.
I just think it's really important to have a strategy because that's the thing that's going to freak most people out. I mean, again, to go back to my experience, which is so different from your guys, is like when I realized that I had a problem and I'd set it down once and for all, I think it was December 14th was the last drink. And then so obviously the Christmas holiday is coming up like 2 weeks later. And where did we go? We went to Drum Ride, Oklahoma, of all places, where my wife's family was from. And we got there on the first day, and I insisted everybody come into the living room. All the kids went outside, and I brought every adult, all the aunts and uncles, grandma, grandpa, all my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law. I brought everybody in, and I basically just read them a letter that I wrote to them saying, like, I have to do this because I'm a monster with it. And you don't have to stop drinking, but I'm never going to drink again. And I just need everybody to know that. I don't want it to be weird. You all keep throwing down and you do what you want. But just know for me, the chapter is ended. It's over. And I'm never going to be looking
impressive.
back.
I think, honestly, I love that.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but didn't you feel like your point got across? Because you know how I told you that year where I was like, so weird with it? People would just not let it go.
No.
They would just be like, come on, relax. You're not an alcoholic. Why are you even doing this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, because I'm choosing my health. I'm choosing my family. I'm choosing my mental health. Yeah. You know, and it was never enough. So I do think if you can elicit a laugh and keep it chill, I think that's really great when someone asks you why you're not drinking. But if you need to, you can also just lie. It's not anyone's business. Like, honestly, I get sick whenever I drink, so I'm drinking this. Something I've tried that is really effective is I'm like, oh my gosh, I have tried this non-alcoholic beer and it is so good. You have to try it. And I kind of like flip it aggressively where they're like, wait, oh, okay, I'll try that. Okay. You know, so it's like, then they're trying what I'm bringing. And then the conversation just kind of moves away. It just
I try to just keep it light. I'm like, I don't like the way my face looks like when I wake up in the morning. So I've decided to just stop drinking. And for some reason, that one resonates. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's
I have never heard that one, but I think if someone said that, I would be like,
I couldn't stand looking in the mirror in the morning. I was like, this is.
No, I agree. It's not any of their business, but I also will say on that same tongue that I think for folks like you guys, and certainly in the line of work that I'm in now, I think the more honest we can be with people about the reasons we're choosing to set down whatever that substance is, we're more inclined to hear something like this. Yeah, me too. What are you doing?
Exactly.
That is so true.
And that's the truth, right? Like, we don't need to deflect, and we don't always need to keep it light, especially when we're around our family. Like, there's nothing wrong with looking at your mom and dad and going, Mom, Dad, like, I think it was getting to a place that I wasn't comfortable. And so I need to set it down. And not just that, like, I need your support that I set it down. And if you know, and it's not like about ultimatums, but for me, it is. And here's the other piece that I think is so important for people to understand. It's like, if you're going to set some substance down and you're going to continue to hang out with people that are going to keep that substance in your life, eventually you're going to get to a crossroads with them where you're going to, you will have to decide which way you're going to go down, because it's like, it does have to dissolve from your life if you're truly going to make that leap to, like I am, where you're just not going to drink. You guys are different. It's a sober, curious thing. It's a mindful drinking. It's, if I'm at a wedding, I'm going to have a glass of champagne. That's a very different sequence. But for people who genuinely have a problem with alcohol, and here's how you know if you have a problem with alcohol. You think you have a problem with alcohol. No, that's it. That's how it works. Like, if you're sitting in your kitchen and you're waking up in the morning, you're like, man, do I have a problem? Yes, you do. Okay. So now go ahead and start to work on it. Figure out what you're going to do to get yourself out of that situation. And thanks to people like you, there's more options than there's ever been for folks who want a community of sober, curious people. So let me kind of, as we start to wrap up a little bit, how will you know that Teetotally is successful? What does that look like for you guys as you've sat around and thought about the dream for this thing, and you know what it'll look like? I think
it will mean helping one person. Yeah. It's all we care about, is that we don't want people to feel alone.
Yeah. And changing the narrative around drinking. It's hard to quantify that, but just we're seeing it. Yeah. As we're doing this, just the response from people, and like, oh, I feel that way too. And I don't sleep and I don't want to do this. And
we really feel like there's a lot of people who do have problems with drinking, but they don't want to use that word alcoholic. They don't want to think of themselves as an addict of any sort. And maybe they're really not, but they do have a problem. And so we're saying, let's reconsider that relationship. Let's take a look at that. And it's okay to examine it personally, privately. And here are some things that you can do in the meantime while you're working on that. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. And we hope people feel like they can reach out to us too.
Teetotally they can.
DM us or email us. We would love to hear from people.
That's how you have to answer all the questions now. When people ask you something that's right, you say teetotally.
Yeah, teetotally. I know, every time we say totally, we're like, teetotally.
Teetotally. I love that.
Anyway.
Well, listen, Teetotally is a innovative online platform dedicated to providing inspiration, resources, and community for people who embrace a mindful approach to alcohol, including those who prefer not to drink at all. And if some of our conversation today has resonated with you, I would encourage you to look out for Teetotally and get involved in this community that you guys are trying to birth and get off the ground and be ultimately successful with, because that's the difference between making it and not making it. Very few folks can do it on their own. Really, very, very few people have the capacity to go down that journey by themselves. And as you guys said, even if it's just another buddy at the party, boy, does it just make everything that you're getting ready to go through so much easier and so much better. And there's a ton of power in that idea that you're not alone. That's it. There's so much power in that idea that you're not by yourself. And I can guarantee, Abbie, well, you were having that sort of year where you were kind of transitioning out of one thing and into another. Part of the reason you sort of wanted to stay in was because you felt isolated. You felt like, oh my God, I'm the only one going through this massive change in my life. I'm trying to figure out what my relationship is with alcohol. I'm trying to figure out what is my relationship with my husband? What is my relationship with my kids? We've just moved to, like, you were going through a ton of stuff. And it's very, very easy in those instances to turn inward and to feel like you're the only one rowing the boat, when the truth is there's millions of people just like you. We just have to use your words, the secret, the law of attraction, to have those people kind of magnetically drawn into your circle. And that's the goal, isn't it? Yeah. That's so awesome. I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up. It's a fantastic piece of the world that you're going to go after. And are there Teetotally T-shirts? Are there Teetotally hats? Are we merching up? Where are we headed?
We gotta get some merch going.
We do.
I don't know. Not yet.
Yes.
We're just beginning. We're just focusing on the website, and then of course
our
Instagram. So Instagram is Teetotally, and then that little underscore life. And then our website is teetotallyLifestyle.com. So check it out. Yeah. Right now, our main focus is just reaching out to people, connecting.
We don't know what this is going to turn into, but we're open.
Yeah, yes. Here's the thing I know, guys. Where it starts won't be where it ends. And just as long as you keep as long as you keep moving one foot in front of the other, and you literally treat every single thing like it's a win and a learn, you'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine, because you have both become successful in other areas of your life. There's no reason to think you can't do it again, right?
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. Abbie and Janay, you can find them at Teetotally. What was it? _life on the IG. Get on the gram. You guys got to get hoodies that just say sober, and on the back they say curious.
Oh,
I love it. All right.
Oh my God. You're the best.
Okay.
Thank you, Matthew.
Some merchandise in the mail.
This is great.
Appreciate
Thank you so
guys.
much.
All right.
See you next time.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People who lived it. 1, to help you feel less alone. 2, encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3, when you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People who lived it wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People who lived it.
At Mental Joe, they sell more than shirts. They sell apparel with a purpose. In fact, my favorite hoodie in my closet is a Mental Joe hoodie. They help out G.I. Joes to the average Joes, 1 t-shirt at a time. With every purchase, you help them support organizations that can provide services to help others get out of their heads and into their bodies through plant medicines, equine therapy, yoga, and other non-traditional mental health treatments. Link to them. Pick out your favorite t-shirt or hoodie right now at learnfrompeoplewholiveit.com/resources.